Alright, in this video we're going to dig a little deeper into some of the kinds of tweets that you'll see on Twitter and hear people talking about, just so you understand what they are talking about when they use particular kinds of words. And those specific words we're going to talk about in this video are mentions and replies. Now, mentions and replies are actually in many ways brothers and sisters, but let's dig deeper into both of those so that you can understand exactly what they are. First, the broader category is the mention. When someone talks about a mention, what it means is that you and your Twitter name are mentioned in a tweet in any way at all. So for example, if we look at this tweet here from Steve Spencer, it's actually a retweet and has my name at the end because it was originally my tweet, and I'm mentioned in this tweet, and all mentions in Twitter will appear on your Connect tab as we've shown here. And if we go down to the next one, I'm having a conversation with a guy called Steve Mullen here, and he's replying directly to me with @MadLemmings, and that's also mentioned here. So anywhere where my name, my Twitter name, Mad Lemmings, is mentioned, it will appear on here as a mention. Of course, this list here includes other things like follows and favorites and so on, so it's not purely mentions, but all of the times that I'm mentioned will be appearing here in the Connect tab. So as I mentioned here earlier, replies actually begin directly with your name. So if you want to reply to a tweet, you can use the reply button here, and as you'll see, the name will appear right at the beginning. Nothing before the name, only the name. So that's a reply. You're replying to their tweet. And if you expand on tweets that are actually going back and forth, like this conversation here, on the View Conversation link, you'll actually see the whole conversation between me and that person, including all of the replies back and forth between us. So as I said, you can reply directly, you can reply to a conversation, and all of these are mentions, and mentions are anything that includes your name. So of course you want to know when people are talking about you or retweeting you and are mentioning you. So another interesting thing to understand is actually the limitations on visibility of things like tweets and mentions. And if we pop over to the Twitter Help Center here, they've got some interesting information to clarify all of these. In the Things to Note area here, if you visit another person's profile page on Twitter, it will not display tweets that mention them. So all of these tweets that I'm talking about with mentions don't appear on that person's main Twitter timeline that's displayed to the public. Another interesting thing to note is that replies will only appear in your timeline if you follow both the sender and the receiver. So even though I'm having a conversation with somebody on Twitter like I showed you before, and we're actually talking to each other and not to the public, those tweets are actually semi-public. So anyone following both me and Steve will see both of those tweets appearing on their timeline because they follow both of us. So that's something to be aware of. If you're having a conversation with somebody, that is actually kind of public, so be careful with that. One rule to use when tweeting is always consider anything that you write on Twitter as public, and don't ever write anything you wouldn't want to shout out to the public, or as somebody said, put on a billboard. If you're not going to put it on a billboard, don't write it on Twitter. You can be caught out with some very embarrassing situations. If you really want to keep things private, you can use direct messages, but let the person know you've sent one because not everybody checks them, or send them an email. Don't send them a tweet. There's also some other specific details Twitter's mentioned here. For example, if you've got a protected account, there's specific rules about that here, which you can read here. I'm not going to go into that. And that's about it for mentions and tweets. Thanks for listening.